Interesting thing is that most of them are still connecting from Partridge Family, which absolutely amazes me.
Yeah.
And as you know, that when you appear in people's living room, they feel a connection with you.
David Cassidy's life changed forever when he joined the Partridge Family in 1970. The show was an instant hit, turning him into one of the biggest teen idols of the decade. Young fans across the world plastered their bedroom walls with his posters, bought his records, and screamed for him at concerts. His smile, charm, and singing voice made him one of the most recognizable faces of the 1970s. But while fans adored him, David was still a young man trying to handle sudden fame. Behind the spotlight, he carried personal struggles that shaped his relationships. His parents' divorce, his complicated bond with his father, and the pressure of constant attention left him searching for stability. On the set of The Partridge Family, he found comfort in friendships with his co-stars, especially Susan Dey, who played his on-screen sister Lori. For Susan, however, their friendship was more than just companionship. She secretly wanted something deeper. This set the stage for a complicated relationship that would lead to heartbreak and regret. Susan Dey was more than just another actress on the set. She was beautiful, talented, and admired by fans, yet she struggled silently with her growing feelings for David Cassidy. Playing siblings on screen made it even harder, as her emotions were hidden under the mask of acting. While David often saw her as a younger sister and trusted friend, Susan hoped that one day he might see her in a different light. She admired his talent, supported him during stressful times, and remained by his side when fame seemed overwhelming. Their bond grew strong, but Susan's affection deepened beyond friendship. Shirley Jones, who played their mother on the show and was also David's real-life stepmother, noticed Susan's feelings early on. Out of concern, she warned Susan not to get too emotionally attached, because David was not known for committing in relationships. But Susan, young and deeply smitten, ignored the warnings. She wanted her feelings to be known, and eventually, she took the risk of confessing her love to David. When Susan finally shared her feelings with David, it led to a moment that fans would later learn was far from the romantic story they might have imagined. After The Partridge Family ended, David invited Susan to spend time together. They talked, shared memories, and eventually, one evening, they crossed the line from friendship into romance. It was not planned, and according to David's later accounts, it did not feel natural. He cared for Susan deeply as a friend, but the passion was not there for him in the way it was for her. They shared a kiss, spent the night together, and became physically intimate, but the experience left David feeling uneasy. He realized that what Susan hoped would turn into a lasting love was, for him, just a mistake. By morning, both of them knew something had changed forever. What had once been a strong, supportive friendship was now clouded with awkwardness and disappointment. For David, this one night created a regret he carried for years, because it destroyed one of the most meaningful friendships he had in Hollywood. The aftermath of that night was painful. David later admitted that he should have never allowed things to go that far. For him, Susan was like a sister, someone he cared for and respected, and he regretted turning their bond into something physical when his heart was not truly in it. Susan, on the other hand, was left heartbroken. She had hoped that their intimacy would bring them closer, but instead it pushed them apart. Their friendship slowly faded, and the trust they once shared was never fully rebuilt. They stayed in touch for a while, but the closeness was gone. David's regret was not just about hurting Susan. It was also about losing one of the few people who truly understood him during his most chaotic years of fame. The experience showed how fragile relationships can be when emotions are unbalanced. For fans, the story remained hidden for many years, until David revealed it himself in his memoir. His honesty shocked many, but it also opened a painful wound that Susan never wanted discussed publicly. In 1994, David Cassidy released his memoir, Come On, Get Happy, Fear and Loathing on the Partridge Family bus. The book was brutally honest, covering his struggles with fame, relationships, and substance abuse. But one part stood out to fans and shocked Susan Dey: the revelation of their one-night stand. David not only confirmed the rumors, but also described it in a way that Susan found deeply disrespectful. He mentioned feeling disappointed that the night lacked passion, and even criticized her for not being as exciting as other women he had been with. For Susan, this was more than embarrassing. It was a betrayal. She had kept her feelings private for years, and now the world knew about one of the most vulnerable moments of her life. She called his memoir a terrible violation, and made it clear that their relationship had ended long before the book was published. By sharing details she wished to keep private, David closed the door on any chance of reconciliation. His regret deepened, as he not only lost Susan as a friend but also caused her lasting pain. While his regret over Susan was personal, David's life was filled with other struggles that shaped his later years. After his teen idol fame faded, he tried to reinvent himself as a serious actor and performer. Unfortunately, he was often typecast as Keith Partridge, and Hollywood could not see past his image. Financial problems soon followed. Despite earning millions in the 1970s, David signed poor contracts and received little money from reruns and record sales. Failed investments, lawsuits, and a costly lifestyle drained his fortune. By the 1980s and 1990s, he was performing smaller shows and struggling to maintain the fame he once enjoyed. Alongside financial issues, David battled alcoholism, leading to multiple arrests for drunk driving. His once bright image was clouded by public incidents, health scares, and strained family relationships. These struggles painted a picture of a man who had once been adored by millions, but was now fighting demons in both his career and personal life. His regret about Susan Day was only one part of a much larger story of loss, mistakes, and attempts at redemption. Despite the damage, David tried to repair his friendship with Susan. He wrote her letters and expressed his desire to make peace. However, Susan never responded. By that time, she had chosen to distance herself from him and even from much of her Partridge Family past. When VH1 contacted her for a reunion documentary, she refused to participate, showing that her memories of those years were still painful. David, on the other hand, often spoke warmly about Susan in interviews, calling her a wonderful person and admitting his deep regret. Their paths crossed publicly only a few times after the show, most notably at the MTV Video Music Awards in 1990, where they presented an award together. On stage, they smiled and joked, giving fans a glimpse of the old connection. But behind the smiles, the real bond had already been lost. Whether they ever reconciled privately before David's death in 2017 remains unknown, but most signs suggest that the friendship they once cherished never fully returned. In his final years, David Cassidy's health declined due to years of alcohol abuse. He struggled with memory loss, liver failure, and financial problems. Yet even during these difficult times, he reflected on his past with a mix of pride and sorrow. He acknowledged the joy he brought to millions through his music and the Partridge Family, but he also admitted to many personal failures. Among them, his regret about Susan Day stood out as one of his most personal mistakes. In the end, David Cassidy's story is not just about fame, downfall, or addiction. It is also about relationships, how easily they can be broken, and how some regrets never heal. His one-night stand with Susan Day might have been brief, but its consequences lasted a lifetime. For Susan, it was a painful betrayal. For David, it was a reminder that even the brightest stars can make choices that cast long shadows. His legacy remains complicated, but one truth is clear. Behind the fame and music was a man who carried deep regrets, including the loss of a friendship that once meant the world to him. One of the main reasons David Cassidy's personal relationship suffered was the overwhelming pressure of being a teen idol. In the early 1970s, his concerts attracted crowds so large that police often had to step in to control them. Thousands of screaming fans would chase him, grab his clothes, and surround his car. While this might sound flattering, David later admitted it was suffocating. He could not go to a restaurant, walk down the street, or even enjoy private time without being recognized. Reporters constantly followed him, and magazines exaggerated stories about his love life. As a result, he grew suspicious of people's intentions. He often wondered if women liked him for who he really was, or only because of his fame. This made it difficult for him to open up emotionally, even to someone as genuine as Susan Day. When she confessed her feelings, he may have feared that dating her would complicate their friendship and possibly even damage the public image of the Partridge family. Fame brought him wealth and attention, but it also left him isolated, unable to fully trust the people closest to him. This isolation added weight to his regret about losing Susan, because she had been one of the few people who knew him before his fame exploded. While David's career took many ups and downs, Susan Day built a very different path for herself after the Partridge Family. She moved away from teen idol fame and pursued more serious acting roles. In the 1980s, she became widely respected for her role as Grace Van Owen in the hit legal drama L.A. Law. The performance earned her a Golden Globe Award and several Emmy nominations, proving that she had successfully transitioned from a sitcom star to a talented dramatic actress. Unlike David, Susan preferred to keep her personal life private. She rarely gave interviews, avoided gossip, and stayed out of the spotlight whenever possible. This privacy made David's memoir even more painful for her, because it exposed a part of her past she never wanted discussed publicly. Friends and co-stars often describe Susan as intelligent, thoughtful, and sensitive, which makes sense given how deeply she was affected by David's betrayal. Despite the painful chapter with Cassidy, Susan found stability in her personal life. She married television producer Bernard Sofransky in 1988, and the couple has remained together for decades. Her choice to distance herself from the Hollywood spotlight also shows her desire for peace and normalcy, something David struggled to achieve until his final days. Decades after the Partridge Family ended, fans are still drawn to the story of David Cassidy and Susan Dey. One reason is that their relationship reflects the classic tale of unrequited love, something many people can relate to. Susan's secret crush, her hope for romance, and the heartbreak that followed are universal emotions that transcend celebrity status. Another reason is the contrast between their public image and private reality. On screen, they were the picture of a happy family, playing siblings who laughed, sang, and solved problems together. Off-screen, however, there were hidden feelings, awkward encounters, and regrets that fans never saw until years later. This contrast adds a layer of drama that feels almost like a script from a Hollywood movie. Fans are fascinated by the idea that even stars who seem perfect on television struggle with the same messy, complicated emotions as everyone else. In addition, David's honesty in his memoir, although painful for Susan, gave people an insider's view of the cost of fame, relationships, and bad decisions. It reminded the world that being famous does not protect anyone from heartbreak or regret. The story of David Cassidy and Susan Dey carries lessons that go far beyond Hollywood gossip. First, it shows how fragile friendships can be when emotions are unbalanced. Susan valued David as both a friend and a potential partner, while David only saw her as a close companion. When they crossed the line into intimacy, their friendship could not survive the mismatch in feelings. Second, it highlights the importance of respect and privacy. By revealing their private encounter in his memoir, David unintentionally hurt Susan more deeply than the one-night stand itself. The lesson is clear. Trust